Coaching Cast, your working from home managers club. Here to check in with you weekly, to share your remote working highs and lows, remind you that you're not alone, and acknowledge that there's many of us outside of your living room, kitchen, spare room, car, all sailing through this crazy storm together whilst trying to be the best coach, leader, manager and human being we can be. I'm Lisa Robin Wood, founder of Grip Corporate Coaching, personal performance coach, leader, and chief eye roller when it comes to all nonsensical corporate mumbo jumbo, which suffocates rather than advocates.
And I'm Susie Hunt, business coach, leadership and sales mentor at Future You Coaching, currently taking on my hardest coaching assignment to date, parenting a 1-year-old who certainly does not like being questioned.
In this podcast, we aim to explore the leadership and coaching techniques required to navigate and survive the current business environment, masks and social distancing measures included. Each episode will present different topics which we will explore and discuss with support from some special guests along the way, sharing ideas, hints and tips as we go. We won't tell you what to do because we hate that, but we'll share and invite you to take away whatever you want. We hope you enjoy listening. So, Boris Johnson has announced his roadmap to get the UK out of lockdown. Hurrah! And we're now looking ahead to June the 21st when we're being told all restrictions plan to be lifted. In today's episode, we're exploring what this may mean for the current state of remote working, what going back to work may look like, and how we determine and initiate our personal boundaries effectively to maintain what it is we like and wish to keep from lockdown life. Stay with us and enjoy. So it was International Women's Day yesterday. What a day of love it was as well. It was awesome. I don't think I've seen on a particular International Women's Day so many compliments and messages and support being shared between everyone, actually. It was so nice. And so to celebrate this, we are going to do something a little bit different for the start of today's episode. And we're going to start, well, firstly, actually, we're going to start by celebrating us, aren't we, Susie?
Yes, although that's...
I think that's okay. That's allowed.
Yeah, I think it's okay. We can absolutely do that today, following on from the love of yesterday.
Yeah. So, let's celebrate us first, and then we'll celebrate other people. So, firstly, our big news is we have now achieved over 900 listens of this podcast.
Woo!
Which is unbelievable, considering we only launched just over a month ago. And there are currently 7 episodes available. 8 episodes available. This is episode 9.
It is.
So, yeah, unbelievable. We're so super chuffed. Suze, what's the exact number? Because I think you know it.
All over the stats there.
I know,
so
as always.
991, so nearly 1,000.
It's nearly 1,000. Oh, it's pretty much 1,000. We can just round it up. Can someone just listen to us 9 more times? Thank you very much. In the next 5 minutes, and then that will hit the 1,000. So yeah, amazing. We're so thrilled. We're quite shocked, to be honest. I don't think we thought we'd hit that many listens so soon.
Yeah.
But we're just so grateful. So thank you to everyone who has been listening and is still listening. Yeah. We really appreciate it, and we hope you stick with us. We're coming to the end of season 1. Season 2 is in the pipeline, which we're really excited about. And we'll be sharing more about that in next week's episode, the final episode of season 1. Can't believe we're saying final episode.
I know, crazy.
But yeah, so just a huge thank you. So
yeah, thanks everybody. We really appreciate it.
Woo!
And also for sharing the love with your colleagues, your friends, your family, whoever you've spoken to us about, spread the word of the Coaching Cast. Honestly, it's absolutely made our week, I think.
Absolutely amazing. So we've celebrated us. So yes, well done us. Woo, well done us. And now we'll celebrate some other amazing females. And we're going to do that in the theme of music, which is a big part of the Coaching Cast podcast. As those of you who've listened to us before will know, we like to finish with a song recommendation at the end. So we're going to do that today, but we're actually going to start with some celebration of female artists first and some recommendation of our favourites. So Suze, do you want to kick us off with your sort of favourite 2 female artists that spring to mind?
I will do. I found this exercise actually a lot harder than I thought I would. And I think you did as well. There's just so many great people to choose from in terms of this question. So in the end, I actually just went with my gut. And so I just went with it. And so my two kind of favourite females that I wanted to call out today in music. So first of all, I wanted to all hail the Queen, Beyonce. That's my number one choice.
Of course, what a legend.
Absolute queen. And my reasons for that were, I think, her boundless potential. Like, she is absolutely somebody who I personally love. I feel quite inspired by. She is a performer, she's a businesswoman, she's a mum, she's a campaigner, she's a feminist. And I think she just really represents a modern female, which I just really kind of buy into, to the point where on my hen do, which was a few years ago now, my bridesmaids organised my hen do focused around a Beyonce theme. That's how much I love her. We did
that
a Beyonce.
Amazing.
It really was. And we did a Beyonce themed dance class, because I love dancing as well. We did a Beyonce themed dance class, and we had like masks of Beyonce's face, and we had like branded t-shirts. Honestly, it was the best.
Oh my God, that sounds awesome. Is there any video footage of said dance class?
There is somewhere. Yeah.
Oh my
God,
somewhere. You have got to share that with me. And
I'll
then
see
we
if
need
I can
to
dig
share
it
it
out.
with the world. We need to share it with the world, the greatness of your dancing capabilities. There's hidden talent that I'm assuming you must have. I've seen
it was
you on the
honestly amazing. Oh God, it was brilliant. I absolutely loved it.
Oh wow!
And so my number one choice had to be the Queen that is Beyonce.
Good choice. Good choice. Love it. And what about choice number two?
So choice number two is probably still in the same genre of music. But this person has done something recently, which, when I was kind of thinking about what my number two choice would be, kind of tipped her over the edge in my decision. And my number two choice is Pink. I, again, love her music and I love what she stands for. But she launched a new single last month, which was a duet with her 9-year-old daughter, Willow. And it's called Cover Me in Sunshine.
I did see this.
Oh, it's honestly the most beautiful, heartwarming collaboration and song, and brings real joy. I watched the video yesterday when I was kind of doing some research. And honestly, it brought a tear to my eye. It was just absolutely beautiful to kind of listen to. And so I just thought that was brilliant. And I really, again, just felt really inspired by it and wanted to celebrate that brilliant kind of collaboration there with her daughter. And how beautiful is that they've got that together as well as something to kind of always look back on. So yeah, my second choice is Pink.
Pink is the soundtrack to my teenage angst.
Okay.
Like, without a doubt. Oh my God.
Okay.
And I had an obsession with a cropped haircut, which any of my best mates who are listening to this will know all too well. I wanted to look like Posh Spice at the Spice Girls with her crop.
Okay.
Yeah, so I took that to a hairdresser, not a very good one, I might add, who subsequently tried to cut this hairdo in for me. But what she should have said was, love, you're 14. You're never going to look like Posh Spice anyway, because you look completely different, let alone the hair texture is wrong, because I've got a slight curl in my hair. So if you cut my hair short, I literally have like a little afro. But also you are, I don't know, about 10 years younger than her and haven't really quite gone through puberty. So why I thought this was going to work out for me, I don't know. But Pink was my other idol, and I absolutely adore her. And her relationship with her daughter is incredible. I think she's an unbelievable role model. So yeah,
she really is.
So much love for Pink.
Oh,
great choices. Love the choices. All I've got in my head now, though, is we run the world, girls. Girls, we run the world, girls. Girls, especially after yesterday. Start, my little wind. Yeah. So street as ever.
That's not what anybody wants to hear. I've started singing nursery rhymes with my little boy to the point where sometimes he looks at me like, can you stop? Because this is just so out of tune. Like, no more. So I'm definitely not going to sing, but I think that's a good attempt there at a tune.
Thanks very much, Suze. So yeah,
what about you?
Yeah, so you're right. I struggled really badly with this because there are just so many. I mean, I love music so much, and I think the hardest challenge ever is to pick like your top favorite songs of all time. Pick 5. I break out a sweat. I find that really stressful. And actually, what I didn't appreciate was how many females I have in my music collection who I absolutely adore, and how many songs of theirs are in my all-time favorites. So I have chosen to.
Okay.
I did manage it, and I was a bit like you. I went with the 2 that jumped straight into my head when I thought of it. And the first one is one who I have revisited recently, who I found during my teenage Dawson's Creek years.
Oh, Dawson's Creek.
Yeah. And this is an artist called Jewel. So she's an American solo singer. And I attended an online webinar with her. It was a really amazing experience, actually. I signed up for, one of these things on LinkedIn type thing. Wasn't really expecting much of it, really enjoyed it, and got to watch Jewel talking about her life experiences, which I had no idea about. So, and it was amazing. So one of her songs that I love is called Hands, and it was in a Dawson's Creek episode. I'm sure it was. It was either Dawson's Creek or OC, one of those classics. And I just loved the song when it came out on this program I was watching. But she was talking about the history of hands and where it came from. So what I didn't realise was Jewel had a horrendously abusive childhood. So her mum left at 8 years old, left the family home. Her dad had undiagnosed PTSD because at the time it wasn't recognised, which he'd developed following his time in the Vietnam War.
Okay.
She decided to leave home at 15 and live by herself because the time in her home was too traumatic. And then at 18 years old, went to go and find her mum and ended up living on the streets. And she actually practiced her own form of mindfulness to manage her anxiety at the time. And a big part of that was utilising her hands. So hence where the song Hands came from. Anyway, I listened to this whole story and her talking about it and was just totally like moved by the whole thing. And she's now set up an Inspiring Children Foundation, it's called. So she supports troubled children with managing their mental wellness. Absolutely fascinating. If you want to learn more, you can go to her website, jewelneverbroken.com. Really interesting. So she's my number 1, just because I found that so incredible. And how someone has, I think, survived that whole situation and turned it into something so positive, like for herself in a career, as well as what she does now. So that was my number 1. And number 2 is Skin from Skunk Anansie. Because there are very few females in my mind that stand out and are as iconic as Skin from Skunk Anansie. So she is the headline singer of the band. So they're like a Britpop sort of punk band. Again, they actually were a big part of my late, I think, A-levels and early university years. And I just love the power of the music and the power of her, and that she is just so individual and she stands out. She's a bit like a Grace Jones in that respect, who I always am quite fond of. Speaks her mind, super powerful. I find her completely captivating because I just think she's so unique. So she was my second choice.
Okay. There's some great choices there, Lisa.
Yeah, what a good mixture as well. Excellent. So happy International Women's Day, all of you lovely ladies.
Happy International Women's Day, and also for the men out there as well, just in terms of from an equality perspective. Also shout out to those of you who are very passionate about sorting out inequality and spotting it and dealing with it. That's also much appreciated as well.
Yeah, thank you, Suze, and absolutely agreed. There were some great social media posts from men across my network yesterday, and I really appreciated that. It really felt like a wonderful day all round for everyone. So thank you very much, everyone. So let's get chatting about today's topic. So So in today's episode, we're exploring what the end of restrictions in the UK may mean for the current state of remote working, what going back to work may look like, and how we determine and initiate our own personal boundaries effectively to maintain what it is we like and wish to keep from lockdown life. So Boris Johnson was recently quoted in the Sunday Times saying, "Remote working won't be the new normal," and that the British people would be consumed once again by their desire to meet people in person as the economy reopens. Lockdown has been tough for everyone in some form. And for those remote working, it has been a roller coaster of highs and lows. The workplace, suddenly being within your home on a daily basis, no change in scenery, no obvious breaks from commuting or structured break times, and many people juggling multiple priorities and pressures, including homeschooling, within the same space. But despite the challenges, I think many of us have acknowledged that actually working from home has had its perks and positives. We've talked about that in this podcast, and we've adjusted to it and accepted it now as the norm. I think I'd even say a lot of people I've spoken to actually quite like their current way of working. A recent BBC News article published that Lloyds Banking Group is set to reduce its office space by 20% over 2 years after a staff survey found that nearly 80% wanted to work at home for at least 3 days a week. So if, like staff at Lloyds Banking Group, there are those of us who want to maintain some of our remote working benefits, how do we achieve this successfully? So let's talk about setting and managing our boundaries. So Suze, firstly, what are your thoughts about what the next normal, because we don't use new normal on this show, we've talked about it before, and we don't like it, next normal is going to look like for remote working from the 21st of June?
So I think this kind of concept of the next normal and going back to work, actually at this point is quite hard to define what that looks like. So in some ways, I find the article quoting Boris Johnson in terms of what he said actually like a little bit irresponsible, because I think it's hard. What going through COVID over the last 12 months or so has taught us, I think, is that it's very hard to now expect things to go to plan. Or just because you set out an ambition or an expectation doesn't necessarily mean now it's going to happen, because that's the world is just become so unpredictable because of the environment that we've all been living in. And so I think at this point, kind of setting such prescriptive definitions of what the new working world and going back to work might kind of look like for every single one of us is quite challenging, and it doesn't quite sit with me quite comfortably, because I think we'll need to kind of evolve and develop it as we go, because there'll be challenges that will happen, opportunities that will come our way, things, will be thrown into the mix that at this point we might not necessarily have been expecting or anticipated. And so I think we do need to be careful about putting, and we've talked about it before on the podcast, about putting kind of people in boxes. Actually, in this instance, putting that kind of situation into a predefined box, if that makes any form of sense. But I think in terms of, what are some of the things that I think people are looking forward to about an element of that next normal. I've been speaking to some friends and family and colleagues on this, and I think there's 3 things that have come through in those discussions, and also in terms of how I feel as well. And the first one is around that separation of home and work. So I think having the opportunity to go back into an office environment in some capacity provides that separation between those 2 environments, which, especially given everybody has been facing, more domestic-based challenges, whether that's homeschooling, whether that's looking after, elderly parents or young children. Actually having that element of physical separation in those 2 environments, I think, is something that will create and set those boundaries for people. The second thing I think is about being in one place physically together. And actually, we've talked a little bit about and debated this previously, but I think from talking to people, and also in my experience, having worked remotely for quite a long time as well, there is something about all being in the same place together which generates and inspires creativity and problem solving, and like that workshopping element. I think it's a lot easier to do when you are face to face. I can't really describe why that is still, but I do think there is something in that. And I think it's, maybe it's because you can bounce off people a lot more in terms of reading their non-verbal communication, whether that kind of energy in the room is a lot easier to pick up and bounce off than it is on a screen. And so your creative juices get flowing. And then the third element for me, I think, is that social interaction. So just like having a conversation with somebody that's just in a more informal, casual, relaxed environment, it establishes that kind of that activity in that next normal, and how we carry on kind of doing that and creating those connections with others. So I would say those are probably, from talking to people, they're probably the three kind of main things that are coming out about the next normal, and what that could look like from the 21st of June. What are your thoughts, Lisa?
I think everything so far that I've been reading that's been out there in the press has suggested that the next normal will involve a mixture of remote and office working. I haven't seen anything from anyone in a corporate traditional office sense. That's what I'm speaking about. So to be clear, I know that some of these thoughts, ideas, and actually even what I'm talking about in terms of what's being put into the press is not necessarily applicable to all industries. But for those who have been predominantly working at home because it's based on a computer, I think it sounds as though nearly every corporate office is looking at how they maintain an element of remote working. One, because I think they recognise that the past year has demonstrated that it's totally possible and achievable to have that arrangement and to have it successfully. And because I think they recognise people have become used to it and they like it. And I think come the 21st of June, yes, there's plenty of us who are excited in some way about the end of restrictions, but there is still those of us who are either tussling with a bit of a mixture of emotions, a little bit of anxiety, a bit like I touched upon last week, even myself personally, that I am a little bit, I suppose, tentative about what the next normal looks like. And there are going to be people who don't feel confident yet to come back into the office space, who may need just a bit more time to feel safe. And therefore it can't be rushed. So actually having a balanced way of working and a choice for people where they feel in control of it, I think is really, really important. And I do get the sense that organisations are bearing that in mind. I think also, and I saw this quite a lot on my feed yesterday, especially because it was International Women's Day, I think there are more employers finally, I might add, understanding how critical flexible working arrangements are to parents. Not just women, men as well, because there are plenty of men out there who are the lead child carers at home, or even if they're not, there's a balance between them and their partners and they're sharing it. This isn't just about women being at home. And that actually flexible working is necessary to enable parents to do their jobs well and also look after their families, which is, what they've been doing for the last 12 months so closely from having to be at home. So that's really exciting, because that for me is quite a revolution. There are definitely more people, organizations coming out that I know. Mars is one. Mars has now, I think, given equal care rights to male and female when it comes to maternity and paternity care, which is amazing. And then also Suntory yesterday was celebrating flexible working, and that their commitment to sustain flexible working for all their employees, never get that the right way around, employees, not employers. I do that every time. So that's really exciting. And I think, God, if lockdown and the pandemic, if any of the good stuff has come out of it that we can keep, I think that's one of them. So I definitely think it sounds as though organisations are looking at hybrid. And like, I haven't even mentioned the cash side of things. You know, I've left that until last, but that's the other obvious. Look, if you're a business person and you're only caring about money, Jesus, even if that is all you're about, which, you know, I'm not saying that's right by any stretch, but if it is, hell, there's an obvious cash flow benefit from enabling people to continue to work from home. You don't need as much office space for them. And I think a lot of organisations have stripped out property rental and ownership from their budgets, because they've understood that. Not to mention, so many of them have actually got rid of them in the last 12 months because it wasn't sustainable if no one was going to be there, and business was definitely on the downturn for that period.
Yeah, I think they've actually seen the physical saving from the last 12 months. And so that's created like a data point to actually really focus in on, and it's made it more tangible in terms of what the benefit could be in the long term.
Yeah, always sad, isn't it? Unfortunately, that the tangible element that a business may grab hold of is the financial side. I'd love a day when they actually focus more on people's well-being. I think there are definitely organisations out there who are doing more of that. I'm not saying that there isn't.
Going back to your point about providing choice to employees, you know, businesses don't employ intelligent adults to then like go and just totally prescribe how they should work, when they should work, where they should work. You know, there has to be an element of respecting that you've employed these intelligent adults because they can go and make decisions about how best to motivate themselves and how best to get the outputs out of their work. And it's about that. For me, it's about that adult to adult relationship, not that parent-child dynamic of an organisation enforcing, you know, this is how I need you to go away and work now. And I think when I was managing people, I certainly felt very passionately about judging people on their outputs. Maybe judging was not the right word, but, you know, making sure that that's what I use to make my decisions or create my opinions, rather than when and where you work. I didn't care. Like, as long as you deliver what you needed to deliver and you create a working schedule that works for you and your family and your situation, that's absolutely fine, because fundamentally we're all different. And so what works for me, again, might not work for you.
And I think you're absolutely right when you reference the parent-child and the parent-to-parent setup, because I think organisations do struggle with parent-child syndrome, as I call it. And I think there's a lot of focus on, well, how can we manage that differently and lead that differently and change the leadership and management style to manage that kind of situation, that relationship that's ineffective and unhealthy out. And actually, yes, absolutely, there is an approach to be taken with the day-to-day management from the perspective of performance, but you're missing a really obvious easy one, which you've just mentioned, which is actually, what about building from a place of trust in the relationship first, and a place of, I can see you and what you're capable of, and I trust you to do it, and I'm going to leave you and give you the space to do that. That initiates that parent to parent straight away. So you've got two adults working together. And a big part of that is, as you've described, when you enable an individual to have the power to initiate their own boundaries, those boundaries being, this is where I work, this is where I work best, this is the times I work best. And look, it's not about necessarily leaving that to the decision of the individual 100% of the time, because at times you will need to be there at a certain time, be present, come in the office. You have to flex, but I think getting the balance between it is so important. I totally agree about that whole treat me with the respect in terms of my intelligence, because I've been in roles before where I've gone through a process, I've secured the role, I've worked really hard to demonstrate why my skill set, my experience, my knowledge is fit for purpose for that role, only to then work for a manager who insists on doing everything for me. And I think that's happened to me even in senior roles. Now, at that point, I'm expensive. So I've always kind of thought, what on earth is this individual and organisation doing? You want to pay me this amount of money, but I'm apparently only capable of doing a quarter of it because the rest of it you want to do for me. I mean, I've laughed in those situations at times, but I have to admit, it's been so bloody demotivating. And I have had to address it at times to go, really? I can do this if you just give me the opportunity to do it and leave me like I am capable. Because actually, I think it's known that people are inspired, motivated, energized when they're given responsibility. When your capability is acknowledged, that's recognition. So it makes you feel great, especially to be able to then utilize that skill set. But I think for me, a lot of that still comes down to this topic we're talking about today of boundaries, because I think it's about understanding and recognizing those boundaries, both in terms of how you as a leader set them up as a standard.
Yes.
And in lots of ways, how you role model it.
And monitor it as well.
And monitor it, exactly. And challenge it when you think, actually, I don't think this is working for you or me. So let's have an honest conversation about it. But I think in terms of, setting the standard around it in the first place and acknowledging that the individual themselves is able to set them for whatever works best for them. Because I do think it's interesting. I'm going to ask you this question, actually. Do you think, in particular, when it came to managing boundaries with your team around their choice of working and location and timing, etc., do you think that was more positively influenced by the fact that you yourself had set up an arrangement that best suited you, because you'd based yourself, you relocated during your role, the last role particularly that I know of, 2 or 3, 4, actually wasn't it like 5 or 6 hours away from the head office on a good day? But you went quite far away from the head office is what I mean. So flexible working was really important for you because actually it was going to work for you. Do you think that influenced how you managed other people?
Great question. I think maybe to an extent, because my diary had to have an element of structure, but also had to have an element of flexibility in it because I did live so far away from head office. And so my way of working had to be more flexible. So, a one-to-one would be sometimes maybe on the phone with me sat at a service station on the M6. And so that in itself was more flexible and different versus that traditional way of working. And so, I think maybe that did then kind of breed a sense of me role modeling what a flexible practice could look like for them as well. But I also think that because of the world we were in and the environment we were in and the organisation actually that we worked for, it was encouraged to try and look at getting that work-life balance, and that was very linked to your well-being, which was important, linked to your engagement, and that was very crucial as a metric for us all. And I think there will always be people who add into the debate, understandably, going back to that element about trust, but how do you know that somebody isn't abusing that trust or, those frameworks that you've set in terms of the ways of working? You can't know that all the time. That's not possible. You will know if someone is abusing that because their outputs will change. There'll be a change in either their behavior or a change in their kind of work quality or deliverables. And so that's when you need to go and start probing and having a look at that situation 100%. So I think just behavior breeds behavior, to go back to your question. And I think, yes, I probably did create an environment where, because of the way I worked, it encouraged more flexible working. But I also think it was important for the people who were in my team as well, because of where they were at in their lives and what was important to to them as well. So it was probably a combination of both of those things.
Yeah. But I think it sounds like you were close enough to your team to recognise that and support them with that.
I'd like to think so. Yeah. This is when they get in touch and say,
no, is what they say. No. But I don't know, because I thought about it in the same context for myself, because actually I started commuting to a job back in 2010. Before that, I'd always worked fairly close, fairly, easy distance in many ways to any of the jobs I'd had. But in 2010, I embarked on quite a challenging commute, because I so wanted to live where I lived, which at the time was London. And I wanted to work for this particular company that were based in Oxford. And I commuted, but I commuted on public transport, which I know many people at the time thought I was mad. And I did that for 3 years. So I did it for a long time, but I did it because I knew what I wanted. And I set out clearly in my mind how I was going to make it work. And a big part of that was setting boundaries around when I'm going to start working, when I'm going to finish, the breaks I'm going to have. I have to leave at this time because I need to go and catch, I caught the bloody bus. I mean, totally bizarre for most people. But I was very strict about that. And then I was actually even stricter then about my working at weekends, which I totally did not do because I needed the rest to start all over again on Monday. But I did it because I really wanted it. And I ended up then always commuting. I commuted for work for, in the end, it was like 9 years. And I actually really enjoyed the commute, because the commute created a boundary in itself around when I was going to finish and how I was then going to switch off and wind down from working. Yeah. But it definitely gave me a more empathetic view to anyone who was commuting, but also anyone who was seeking flexible working, because I could see how I had made it work for myself. And it did take flexing from all sides. This isn't about, in my opinion, an organisation has to flex and that is it. I think it is about recognising that in the ideal is a partnership between you and your employer, and you make the situation work for each other. That's my view, because I'm not of the view of, it's about the hierarchy in an organisation and I'm the feeble worker. And I just don't have that mindset around working for people. So I do think it's give and take, and I will give and I'll keep giving as long as I feel like I'm being given back to. And so when it came to flexible working, I was always empathetic, but it also made me very clear around what I thought was acceptable, because I knew what I was doing. And I thought, well, if I can do that and make it work, and if I have to at times flex more, then I'll just do that. So I could sometimes, I probably appreciate, be a little bit unforgiving in the opposite sense to other people, because I can be a bit like, well, if I can do it, so can you. Which isn't always fair or accurate, I might add. But yeah, I just thought it was quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
So in terms of this topic around boundaries then, I think you raised a fair point right at the start of this whole conversation in response to Boris Johnson's article in the Sunday Times, which from your perspective, you said, is it right to be stating how remote working is going to change at this stage when we've still got a number of months yet to go before the 21st of June. Nothing's set in stone. Even Boris has said that about the roadmap. We don't really know what's going to happen. We may not even get to that point and the restrictions are lifted. So we do have to be careful about how we plan now, because quite rightly, as you've already stated, plans have changed constantly over the last 12 months. There's nothing to say they won't change again. That being said, and I would say probably even that being in mind, knowing that some of this is not in our control, like, what are your recommendations for setting and managing like personal boundaries to achieve what you want in a work life sense? Like when we're looking at like, how do we keep the bits we want?
Yeah. So I think, firstly, I would suggest that people think about what boundaries mean for them, and really try and get under the nub of what it is that they want to protect or what it is they want to change in terms of that space. So, for example, are you somebody who's saying yes to every request that comes your way? And actually that's making you feel uncomfortable. That's making you feel stressed because you're running around and feeling like you're not necessarily achieving everything? Or are you somebody who's accepting every Zoom meeting invite that's coming in? So your diary is literally just stacked one after another of Zoom or Teams meetings. So you get no break in the day to just pause, take a breath, get a coffee, have a little change of scenery, have a walk. Or actually, are you really enjoying the fact that you are able to have a lunch break between, say, 12 and 1, and you can go out and grab some fresh air with the dog, and you want to protect that in your kind of new world as we move forward? So I think my first thing I'd say is just really try and have a think about what those boundaries are that you're A, trying to protect, or B, you're wanting to change. And there's a great quote, which I'm just going to read now, by a motivational speaker called Tony Gaskins. And for me, I think this sums it up really well. He says, "You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce."
I love that. We'll have to get that noted down, stick it up on a social post somewhere.
Absolutely. We'll get it on Instagram.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I think he's got a really good point, and it summarizes for me the benefit of really just thinking about what those boundaries are for you. And again, they will be different for us all. And I think just being clear around, leading on from that, being clear around in that working environment, have a conversation with your line manager, or if you are a manager of a team as well, do this with your team. Just be clear around what the responsibilities are for each of those people, and also for you as a team in totality. Work through that together, align what those thing you can do is prioritize what those responsibilities are from 1 to 3, so your top 3 in a certain period of time, because they will create the boundaries that you'll then be working towards, and they'll help you define what they are, and everybody will then be on the same page in terms of setting and defining those boundaries, and so then subsequently managing them in the right way, hopefully. So that would be kind of another point I would suggest. And then the other kind of thing I would say is try to just become more consciously aware and take note of situations or people who make you feel that your boundaries are becoming compromised. So build your own awareness around, actually, something happened then, I suddenly feel a bit uneasy about it, or suddenly don't like that. Why is that? Is that because my boundary has become compromised, or they've made me feel a certain way? I don't like that. I feel like there's an expectation now that I do need to log on at 8 p.m. and reply to that email, and that's making me feel conflicted. Because then you can relevantly action plan and reset in terms of whatever that looks like. But you need to have an awareness of where that's happening and why that's happening in order to address it, and then subsequently manage your boundaries more effectively. And then the final thing I would say is learning to let go, and also empowering others when it's appropriate to do so. You need to be careful about this, because you don't want to then enforce things onto other people, which then compromise their boundaries because they protect yours, if that makes any sense. But learning to trust others, play to other people's strengths if it's appropriate, and help reinforce those boundaries that you've set yourself, and communicate and show that, because then that's also role modeling how you are doing it, and that gives great inspiration to others about how to then go and do that for themselves as well. But you do need to be careful that that is a mutual agreement, that you are empowering and giving perhaps other things for people to do, and learning to let go of that, rather than just enforcing it of I need you to go away perhaps and do this or complete this, off you go, end of conversation. That's not what I'm saying in this recommendation. So they would be probably like my 3 or 4 perhaps top tips to have a think about in terms of setting and managing your boundaries to achieve your own work life and whatever you want that to look like.
I was thinking about this in terms of my experience when it comes to boundaries and individuals' boundaries being broken or mismanaged. And the most common reason is because they themselves haven't understood what their own bad boundaries actually are and haven't communicated them clearly to anybody. And I think, people who are guilty of always saying yes and then feeling exhausted, tired, burnt out, taken advantage of, it's not usually, that's probably the wrong word and it's too generalized. It's not, in part it can be, let's say, because they themselves haven't considered, well, what am I prepared to do? What am I not?
Yeah.
What's important to me? What are my priorities? To then know that when someone approaches them with something that doesn't align to it, that they can say no, because they can see, well, this doesn't correlate with what's important to me. If you haven't got those boundaries, there's a risk that you will just get, not mistreated. That's not really what I mean. It sounds way too dramatic, but you're less likely to be able to be clear about managing expectations on what you will and won't do, because you aren't clear anyway. You don't know yourself.
And productive, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I totally agree. I think you, as the first top tip, you've got to think about what your boundaries actually are and what is okay for you and what is not. So to use your point, what do you want to protect and look after? Predominantly. So I think that definitely is one. And then the second part to that is, it's all good and well creating those boundaries, but no good if you don't share them with anyone. Because it's not fair for anyone to assume that or expect them to know what works for you. They can't. And it's wrong for them to do so anyway. I think we've talked about that. I'm not encouraging anyone to make assumptions. I think you have to take responsibility that if you know the way you want to work and what works best for you, you need to share it with people so they can help you to achieve it. Because we all work in teams, very few of us work silo, unless you are a solopreneur, our word that we've learned this season, and you're able to manage and dictate your day. But even to that extent, you still have customers. You still have to manage boundaries with customers to manage their expectations. So you're not completely on your own. But I do think you've got to communicate with people and let them know, bring them in.
Yeah.
Because actually they'll want to help you. There's nothing more frustrating when actually you've encroached on someone's boundaries and there's been a reaction and you had no idea. I mean, it's so infuriating. You end up being in like a very difficult situation with conflict when actually there was no need. Or you can be just really frustrated because you're feeling like you're not getting what you're expecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's simply because someone just didn't say to you, well, I won't be able to do that, or I'm not going to do that for this reason. So I do think that communication piece is really, really, really important. So I think to summarize, Suze, I'm going to read out what I think our top 3 are.
Okay, do it.
So I've got number 1, consider what your boundaries actually are. What's okay, what's not. So what do you want to protect and maintain potentially in this situation as we go into that next normal? And I would think about, and how are you going to make that happen? Who needs to be involved, crucially? Number 2, set clear standards and responsibilities for you and your team to help you prioritise and collectively manage together then the boundaries around that. And I think the more, when you're in a team and you're managing a team especially, the more you involve and engage people, the better, because you'll all be aligned and on the same side. That's an effective team. And then the third thing, communicate, share, and gain mutual agreement and support. Do you think I've missed anything, Suze? Anything major?
I don't think so. No. And I think, just to reiterate again, that quote from Tony Gaskins, I'll read it one more time just because I love it so much.
It is good.
It says, you teach people how to treat you by what you allow, what you stop, and what you reinforce. It's now time for this week's listener question. This is where you, the listener, send us your workplace dilemmas or questions, and we try and answer them and offer some suggestions. So this week's question is from Pippa, so I'll play it now for us.
Hi, Susie and Lisa. My name's Pippa. I'm loving the podcast and I hope that you can help me out. I'm just about to start a new job. I've been furloughed for the best part of a year and I'm just getting a bit anxious now about going back into work, starting a new role. It's going to be completely working from home, which I'm not used to. And I'm just worried that I'm going to get lonely or not have structure to my day. So any tips and advice you could give me would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks, Pippa.
Cheers.
A great question.
Yeah.
Very relevant for today's topic.
I was going to say, very relevant for today's topic. Thank you very much, Pippa. Well, firstly, congratulations, Pippa, on securing a new job. That's amazing. So I'm like, woo, go Pippa.
Round of applause.
Yes. Good things are happening. It's not all bad news. Good things are happening. So well done, Pippa. That's awesome. So I think in respect of your question, what I would say is let's just take the working from home element out of it for the moment. So let's just not focus on that bit specifically. I am making the fairly, I hope, valid assumption that you have started a new job in the past. So if you did it well last time, which no doubt you did, because you now got another job, and that generally is the way things go. If you do well in one job, you're able to get another one. If you did it well in the past, you can do it again. So what I would recommend you do is to think back to the last job that you started and think about, what did you do when you started that job? How did you approach it? What worked well for you? And when you've had some time just to think about those particular questions and maybe write some thoughts down, I would say, what have you learned from that? And what can you take away from that experience that you can use now in this new opportunity that you have, and potentially repeat and see how that works for you? And I think, remember, yes, you're working from home, and appreciate potentially, for yourself, as you say, you haven't done that before. Yes, it may feel new and strange, but you can still initiate a routine for yourself. So like we've been talking about, think about your boundaries in terms of what do you want, what's okay for you in terms of working, what time do you want to start, what time do you want your breaks, what time are you going to finish, and how are you going to set that up for yourself to make that happen? Who needs to be involved to support you to do that? You can still form structure in your day in terms of how you prioritize your work. And you can think about the environment you want to work in from home. So like Susie and I've shared in previous episodes, it might be worth thinking about listening to, I think it was even the pilot, we talked a lot about the benefits from working from home and potentially the challenges. And we shared some tips and suggestions as to how to address some of those challenges. One being around the environment that you're working in, and how do you create a space that feels like work and gives you that time away potentially from normal home life. I think, look at that as well, so you can set yourself up. And don't forget, you can still network. And again, I'm going to point you to another episode now, episode 2 on connectedness, where we talked about how to...
just listen to the back catalogue
of episodes, yeah. And that would be really helpful. That will get us to 1,000 listens. Woo! Just Pippa listening to all of our episodes again. But yes, think about how you can build up your network. Admittedly, you're going to be new in this organisation, but how can you identify people who you can reach out to and speak to, and help build up your knowledge of people and what they do and grow your personal brand? All of that is totally doable. So that's what I would recommend to you, Pippa. Do you have anything to add, Suze?
Probably just one thing, which is about the furlough piece, actually, in the question. And actually, I would suggest maybe taking a moment to look back at your furlough journey, reflecting on that. So what are some of the things it's taught you about yourself? What are some of the things you've learned in that time that you've been on furlough? And what are some of the things you can then take forward into this new part of your career and life now, in your new job? And actually now it's about moving forward into that new role, which you'll be successful at. So I think doing that little exercise might just help you take away some of that worry that because you've been on furlough, that's going to hold you back in some way. I don't think it needs to. So that exercise might help you reframe it a little bit.
Great stuff. So thanks very much, Pippa, for the question, and congratulations again. really excited for you and hope you start the job well, which I know you will actually. So yeah, have a great time and just enjoy it. Enjoy starting this new job, this new challenge. It'll be great. So if those of you who are listening have your own thoughts on this and would like to share, or you have a question that you would like us to answer, please get in touch. You can email us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or you can send us a message on Instagram @thecoachingcast. So it's now time for Bullshit Bingo, a particular favourite feature for many of you, I think. I'm glad this is going down well. We're really enjoying it, and we've had some crackers sent through. We've got a brilliant one today. So this is the part of the show where we call out phrases which get commonly used in the workplace and in life, actually, which make us completely cringe. So today's Bullshit Bingo is one that's been sent through by one of our listeners, Anne. So thank you very much for this. It is on a journey in the context of working towards something and the highs and lows of the experience in getting there. So, Suze, go on then, kick us off. What do you think about this one?
Where are we going on our journey? Because I would love to be on a sunny beach right now, sipping some rosé, looking at the sea, because this sounds like if this journey is going to get me there, then absolutely I'm all for it.
I feel bad about this one because as a coach, this is, we use this phrase a lot. I know I'm guilty of using this one. Personal journey, you're on a journey, you know. I think I use this all the time, actually. It's actually made me rethink whether I should use journey, but it's a good descriptive word for when you're, especially when I'm thinking of it in the context of when you're trying to support someone to achieve a goal and potentially they're getting frustrated or they're not getting there as quickly as they would like. I find this term quite reassuring and respectful. You're on a journey. It's fine. You know, that journey just might be a bit longer than we were expecting. And there's
a delay in your journey.
It's okay. And, you know, journeys can be curved and not necessarily linear. Yeah, I use this one a lot. Sorry, Anne, I actually don't find this that bullshit, but maybe I'm saying that because I use it all the time and listeners are going to be like, oh my God, yeah.
You've got some bias there.
Yeah, I'm biased on this one. I think I've definitely heard it used in my corporate career when leaders in terms of those leaders that I had leading me have tried to use it to brush over issues and things that have gone wrong. I think that's when I've heard it, and that's when I've heard it at a time when actually I found it a bit irritating. Maybe cringe has come in when it's like, you know, let's be honest, we've been on a journey, rather than just going, look, we absolutely buggered it up. Like, let's just lay it on the line. It's, you know, we did this wrong and that went wrong and that didn't go to plan. And that's okay because what we learned was this. But generally, in my experience, in my corporate career, we didn't go into that. We just went, let's be honest, we've been on a journey. Let's just brush over all the shit that's happened and just that's when I think I've heard it misused quite badly. And just, I mean, definitely the rolling of the eyes came out because of the corporate mumbo jumbo faux show. Without a doubt.
I agree. I've heard it used in that context as well. But no, thanks, Anne. I think that's a good one to debate.
Yes, great debate today on that one. Thank you very much. So, guys, if any of you are out there and you've got your own bullshit bingos that you want to send in, we love receiving them from you. So please do get in contact with us. Use the same email address, hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk, or as we've said before, you can message us on Instagram @thecoachingcast. And yeah, we love receiving them. So send them in. So we're coming to the end of today's episode where we've explored what the end of restrictions in the UK may mean for the current state of remote working, what going back to work may look like, and how we determine and initiate our personal boundaries effectively to maintain what it is we like and wish to keep, not just from lockdown life, but in general. So our tips from today for you to try to set and manage your personal boundaries are magic whiteboard.
High tech.
Very high tech. So number one, consider what your boundaries actually are. What is okay and what is not okay? What are you wanting to protect? Because as we've said, if you don't know, No one else will, and you will just end up doing everything and anything for anyone. So number 2, set clear standards and responsibilities for you as well as your team if you manage a team. Be clear around what is the priority so that you guys can manage it together and agree and align on the boundaries for you as a team. And then the third thing is communicate, share, and gain mutual agreement and support to sustain your boundaries. Because as we said earlier in the episode, no one is going to be able to support you in managing your boundaries effectively if they don't know what they are. And to be honest, you're just going to fall out with people and you yourself are going to become frustrated and annoyed. It's all about managing expectations. So they're the top 3 episodes from today. So in addition to the top tips for you, we've also got, in the true nature of coaching, we've got some questions for you to give a try, just to help expand and deepen your thinking on this particular subject. So the first one is, what have you enjoyed about your working life in lockdown? The second thing is, what are the 3 things that you want to keep and essentially protect, as we've already alluded to? Number 3, what action are you going to take to make this happen, and who can support you to do it? We hope you enjoyed today and have some new ideas to take away and try for yourselves. If you have any questions, thoughts, or feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Contact us at hello@thecoachingcast.co.uk or on Instagram @thecoachingcast.
Your support means everything. Therefore, if you like what you've heard, then please give us a follow on Instagram @thecoachingcast. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and most importantly, subscribe to future episodes wherever you listen to your podcasts, and also on YouTube by searching The Coaching Cast. Our next episode is the season finale. How did that happen?
I don't know, it's mad.
Crazy, where we will be looking back at season 1 and discussing our highlights, as well as sharing a few hints as to what you can look forward to in season 2. Also, don't forget there are 8 other episodes of the Coaching Cast, which you can listen to at any time and wherever you listen to your podcasts.
So in the introduction, we referenced how much we both love music and celebrated some of our favourite female artists in acknowledgement of International Women's Day that took place yesterday. God, that's how much time has passed for me already. So what we said we like to do, we're going to do it again today, is finish each of our episodes with our personal song recommendation, just to give you some inspiration musically to energize yourself for the day ahead and get motivated for your next video conference meeting, whether that's on Zoom or Teams, however you do it. So it's my choice this week, and my choice is in honor of, as I said, International Women's Day, and it's Shaka Khan, who I did mention in the beginning, and it's Like Sugar. I feel badass when I listen to this song. I get my groove on, I saunter out. I love it. I've been listening to it loads recently. I just don't think you can not dance to this song.
No,
try
absolutely.
and dance anyway. So that's my song, Shaka Khan's Like Sugar. So I hope you enjoy it. So thanks for listening to us today. And thank you to all of the 991 listens we've had so far. Nearly at 1,000. Get us there, please, by the end of this week. That'd be really great. And yeah, just hope you have a great week. And remember, you've got this.